Hello. In this movie, we're going to continue our look at the hole commands, and we're going to look specifically at the make hole, move hole, also hole arrays, and hole mirror commands. If you'd like to follow along, please go into your sample file location, chapter 1, and open the round and revolved curves file. So we're going to build most of our curves directly on this surface here. So the first one we're going to look at is going to be the make hole command. So I'm going to go ahead and draw just a rectangular shape here. And I'll just draw it from the center out, but it doesn't have to be. And then let me also go ahead and draw an elliptical shape. And I'll draw that in the top view. And I'll draw a shape like that. If I switch to ghosted mode, you can see that the elliptical object I drew is drawn right on the ground plane, whereas this object is drawn on the top surface. And it doesn't really make a difference to the make hole command. So like before, we can find our hole commands down in the hole section here. That would be the make hole command. Or we can pull all of our commands from the toolbar, which is what we'll do. And it's this icon here, make hole. And it's asking me to choose a closed curve. So I can choose that one. I can choose both at the same time if I wanted to, but for this example, we'll just choose the first one. I'll press enter, and this is the surface I want to cut through. And I can just drag up and press enter. And as you can see, we've cut a hole in the object that was the same profile as that square. As I said, I can apply the same command to this elliptical shape, even though it's on the lower portion of the poly surface. I just press this up and drag. Now you don't have to go all the way through an object either. You can just drag a portion of the way in. And if we look at this one underneath, and I'll go back to shaded view, you can see we've cut a hole not all the way through, but it is the same profile as this curve here. Now if we don't like the location of these holes, we can actually move them. And the way that we move holes is by using the move hole command. That's this icon here. And we can select the holes on the planar surface, so that's that hole there. And a place to move from, I'll just click mid. And then let's snap that to a point, so then we can put the hole there. I can also copy the hole by right-clicking on the same icon. And when I click, I add a copy of that hole to that location there. And you can rotate the hole as well. So I'll select the same hole. Center of rotation is going to be this point here. First reference point will be there. And I can just drag that around and change that, or I can type an angle. So that gives us a lot of control over our hole locations. Let me undo all of this. So now we're back to kind of where we started. And we're going to use the hole array command. Now in order to use the hole array command, we actually have to have a hole in the object. So we use the make hole command. We're just going to make a simple round hole at first. We'll select the target surface, and let's give it a little more depth. We'll give it a depth of 2, and a drill angle of 150, just so we still get a slight point on there, just to make it a little more interesting. And we're not going to make that a through hole. It'll just be a 2 millimeter depth hole. So I'll just click there and add that. So we have that hole directly in the object. It goes down 2 millimeters. Now we're going to use the array command. What the array command does is allow you to repeat this hole spaced the way you specify it, and as many pieces in the A and the B directions as you'd like. So I'll click the icon here for array hole. We choose this hole. It's asking us the number of holes in the A direction, which will be this direction. And I'm going to leave it at 4. If you have a different number there, go ahead and type in 4. And if we look at the command line again, it's now the number of holes in the B direction. Let's make that a 5. So my base point, I'm going to go ahead and actually use this endpoint in here. So now I'm kind of moving from the center. And for this first example, we'll do a rectangular array. We're going to make an array that's a rectangle coming out from this section. So I'll go ahead and click for my spacing. I do have the option of adjusting that, and I'll click to show the B spacing. As soon as I click this, it'll give me a preview of where those holes are going to be, and here I can adjust it a little bit more. If I don't like any of my spacing or the number I've selected, I can go ahead and change that. So let's say I think this A spacing could be tightened up just a little bit. We'll make that a 7. And I definitely think the B spacing could be tightened up, so we'll go ahead and make that a 7.5. So that looks pretty good, and when I hit enter, it'll go ahead and cut those holes for me. So again, those aren't cut all the way through. We do have a nice rectangular array of holes in here. Go ahead and undo this. And we'll do the array again. This time we won't do it in a rectangular state. So here's our hole. And I'll go ahead with 5 in the A direction this time, 5 in the B direction, so I'll just hit enter to keep that same setting. Base point, I'll still use this. And I am going to hold down my shift key and constrain myself to a straight line in this direction. And I'm going to switch off rectangular for the B direction though. So rather than going in a straight line like this, which I can still do if I hold down my shift key, or I can switch back to rectangular equals yes, I'm going to drag slightly over in this direction. And when I click, you'll see we've changed that up. Now obviously these are kind of falling out of the space. So let me go ahead and make a change to that. We'll bring that in just a little bit. Let's make that a 6.5. And we'll change this spacing to a 6.5 and see if that helps us out. No, let me change my B number to a 4. And that keeps us all within our actual space. I can go outside the space. Let me bring that back to a 5. So we just have this last hole going outside the area. And when I hit enter, it'll just ignore that hole there for us. But that kind of gives us an uneven pattern. But depending on your design, you may want to change that and make that so you've got a complete and symmetrical array. Let's undo that again. And I'll undo to get rid of that hole. This time I'm going to place a hole a little more centrally located. So right there. So we're going to look at the array hole polar command. So we're going to select a hole just like we did before. It wants to find the center of the polar array. So this is going to be the axis that this hole is arrayed around. Now I happen to have a line that's directly in the center here, but if I didn't, I can go out to my midpoint and get a snap there using my smart track. And I can get a midpoint snap there, bring these together, and I'd get a snap right in the center. It's asking me for the number of holes. Let me go ahead and make that 10. The angle to fill is 360 degrees. Just hit enter. Gives me a preview of what I'm looking for. If that's not enough holes or it's too many holes, I can change that here. Let's try 12. And I can change the angle that's through as well. So let's go ahead and make that 270 and see what that gives us. So you can see that changes the spacing because now it's trying to fit 12 holes in a much tighter arc. When I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and hit yes and apply that command. Let me undo this and show you one other thing on that. Now we don't have to just use normal holes. We can use more custom holes. So if I switch on the profile curve layer, I'll select this middle profile, choose the revolved hole command, choose this as my base point. This is my target. And I'll put a hole in there so you can see it's a much more complex hole. Go to Ghost of View, you can really see the profile. And this time let me delete that curve so you can see me actually get a good snap off of my smart track. We'll do the polar array. We'll use this hole. And I'll snap to midpoint, snap to this midpoint, bring my cursor down, and when I see the word intersection, I know that I'm intersecting those 2 points that are now shown in blue. So I'll click this, number of holes 12, I'm okay with that still. I'll hit enter. Angle to fill, this time I'll do 360 degrees. Shows me a preview, I'm perfectly happy with that, and I'll hit OK. So then it's arrayed a much more complex hole. It's given us 12 examples of it. Let me undo that. And for our last one, we're going to look at mirroring holes. And this is pretty simple. We'll just go ahead and put some holes in this object. Let's give this a drill point of 180. Depth of 5. Radius of 5. We got a much larger hole here now. And let's make a smaller one, so we'll do a 2, and we'll make this a through hole. So now if we look at this, we have one through hole, and then we have some holes with slightly different profiles to them. Now mirror holes is a new command in Rhino. We can just type the word mirror holes. Select this from the list. Then it's asking us to choose the holes in the same planar surface. They do have to be in the same surface. We don't have to choose all the holes here. In this particular instance, I'll just go ahead and select them all. It's asking for the start of the mirror plane axis, and this is really going to be the axis of the mirror we rotated down. Again, I'll use the midpoint snap. And you can already see it starting to preview them for us. So if I want to have a standard kind of a mirror, I will click here. If I want to change it up a little bit, I could kind of click over here and put those holes in a slightly different location. I can also snap to this endpoint here, since I know that this curve comes right out to the center of the object. When I click here, it'll go ahead and just apply that command for me. Control Z this, because you can actually turn off the mirror portion or the copy portion of this. So let me just do these holes here and set copy equal to no. So now I'm going to snap and put these here, but because I've told it not to copy these holes, what it does is it actually flips and moves these holes. So that can be quite powerful if you have some holes in the wrong location and you need to move them over to the other side of an object. And that concludes our look at holes using the make, move, hole arrays, and mirror commands.